Sara of Expat in Croatia here. I'm so glad that you're joining me today. In this video, I'm going to talk about the most common residency questions in Croatia. I'm also going to answer your questions about residency. So if you have a question, drop it in the comments. Also, let me know your nationality, because depending on your nationality, the answer to the question may change. So if you don't know who I am, I've been writing for Expat in Croatia for the last 7 years, extensively about residency, to be more specific. But all of the resources that we have are vetted with lawyers, they are confirmed with the government and validated by your experiences. Anyone who's lived in Croatia knows that everyone's situation is different. So I'm hoping that I'm going to clear up some of the mysteries for you today. Drop a comment, say hi, let me know if you have any questions. Anyone who's RSVP to this event probably already knows that I'm giving something away. So let me tell you about what that is. So some people, they don't want to do a bunch of research. They just want to ask some of the questions and have all of it spoon-fed. And that's cool. I get that. So I offer consulting sessions to anyone who wants to have a one-on-one discussion with me, where I answer all of their questions, provide them relevant resources for their situation, and also connect them to local experts. So today I'm going to be giving away a 1-hour consulting session to somebody. So let me tell you how you can enter. There are 3 different ways. So one way is you can like this video. The second way is you can tag a friend in a comment. Hopefully they'll find it helpful. And the third way is you can share it to your own page. So keep an eye on your Facebook Messenger, because after this video ends, I'm going to randomly pick a winner and I will contact you via Facebook Messenger. So keep an eye out for that. So we are talking about residency today. Personally, I have gone through the residency application process 5 times, one of which, the latest, was permanent residency. So I currently have permanent residency, and I gotta tell you, residency applications in Croatia really can take a toll. So I'm hoping to kind of, like I said, clear up the mystery and give you some tips and help it make it easier for you. So welcome again to everybody. Say hi in the comments. Oh, I see tons of people there. Hello, everybody. Okay, let me know where you're coming in from. I'm curious to see who's joining us today. All right, we're going to dig into the Chavapi now, and I'm going to answer the most common questions that I get. I talk to hundreds of people a week, and a lot of the questions are the same. That makes sense. So we're going to go over those now, and then after that, I'm going to answer your questions. If you have a question, get it in the comments so that I make sure to answer it before we end today. Okay, so first is, what is the difference between a visa and a permit? In a lot of countries, everyone just uses the term visa, but in Croatia, that's not how it works. Croatia likes to mix it up a lot. So in Croatia, you have a visa, but that's for short-term stays. So that's if you're here as a tourist. A residence permit is for long-term stays, if you're actually going to live here. So for a tourist visa, some people have to apply for a tourist visa in advance, like, for example, South African citizens, but then you have other cases like American citizens that don't have to apply for a visa in advance. Depending on your nationality, you can be here between 30 and 90 days. Then if you want to stay past that threshold, you need to apply for a residence permit. So that's different. So that's the difference between a visa, which is a short stay, and a residence permit, which is a long-term stay. So the next question actually came in from a reader, Lawrence Comp, so thank you so much for this question, because it was something I wanted to cover anyways, was which residence permits offer you a path to permanent residency and citizenship? This is a really great question that I get a lot, and there aren't that many options, to be honest. They make it a bit difficult for you to get to that permanent residency point, and you can't apply for citizenship without heritage unless you have permanent residency. So I'm going to go over which options you have. If you're an EU citizen, then you can get a residence permit that has a path to permanent residency. If you are a spouse of an EU national, and this includes if you have a Croatian spouse, then you can get a residence permit that has a path to permanent residency and citizenship. If you work You either work for a Croatian company or you open your own Croatian company and then get residency through it, then that offers a path to permanent. All of the other ones do not. They're all short-term and are kind of built into the law in a way where you would never actually qualify for permanent residency. So thank you, Lawrence, for asking that question. So the next question is, do I need a lawyer to apply for residency? No, you don't. You don't. The government doesn't require it. It's not necessary. Should you? Yes. I recommend that everyone use a lawyer for residency. Unless you are married to a Croatian, that makes things a little bit easier. But in any other case, especially if you have no knowledge of the language, which most people who move here don't, then you should. This is why. So first is the language barrier. That's the biggest thing. So when you go to the police station to apply for residency, you're going to the foreigner's desk. So you would think that at the foreigner's desk, they would speak English. No, they do not. It's a big paradox that has been litigated at length in all of the expat groups, but it is the case. Now, sometimes you can be lucky and you can find someone who's willing to speak English to you, but that is not always the case. And it's quite frankly the exception to the rule. So that's one benefit of having a lawyer. Another one is they're always up to date on the latest requirements. The Croatian law changes a lot, and sometimes it can be retroactive, and it can be quite a headache. So they can clearly outline what those requirements are. They can also help you fulfill some of them. Like, for example, if you need to go get an OIB, they can go and do that with you. An OIB is an identification number. So that's another reason. They also have connections in the local police stations, which can be really helpful. I mean, they can basically quicken up the process that happens at the local police station. Now, once your application goes to Zagreb, you know, it's out of their hands. Zagreb tends to operate on its own. But as far as the processes within the police station, they can certainly help you with that. I mean, I have had many troubles with my permits because when I got here, there just weren't as many options for residency as there are now. And so there were several situations where the police didn't know what to do with me because there wasn't anything written in the law that matched my situation. And having a lawyer that had my back like really got me through that. I really don't know if I'd be here today, to be quite honest. And that leads me to the last reason, is that Croatia is a big gray area. Like the way that everything functions is they look at the law. If it's not in the law, they don't know what to do. So that can cause a bit of a stalemate. So they can help work that out for you. So the next question I want to ask or answer for you that I commonly get, especially lately, especially this past year since the pandemic started, is there a residence permit for retirees? No, there isn't. I don't know why there isn't. There should be. To me, it's common sense. It seems like it would be a really quick win for Croatia because retirees are not taking jobs from Croatians. They're just paying taxes. They're paying into the system. So I hope that that happens one day. So far, it has not, and there hasn't been any indication that they're even having that conversation. The next common question I want to answer is, can you get a residence permit through opening a company? You can. You absolutely can. However, there are catches. So we'll go through those catches now. First is you have to invest 200,000 kunas in the business, which is a lot. It's startup capital, so you can use it for expenses, but you still have to invest that. You have to hire 3 Croatian nationals, or, you know, you can, anything that adds up to that. So you can have work contracts for 6 part-time Croatians, because that will add up to 3 full-time contracts. You also have to live here. There are some cases, some people I've talked to who want to open up a business abroad, well, from abroad, I should say, and they want to apply for the work and residence permit before they get there. You can't do that. In fact, in speaking with a lawyer this past week, I found out that the court that processes incorporation requests has been denying incorporations of we're in the case where their director does not live in Croatia. You need to have an address and live in Croatia to open a business here. So you can get a work and residence permit through opening a company, but it has catches. So the next common question is, do you have to get state health insurance? Yes, you do. Everyone has to. There is an exception, which I'm going to tell you about. So whenever you apply for residency, you're supposed to have health insurance. Now, for a long time, when you applied for residency, you had to get state health insurance before they would even accept your application for residency. That has changed. So now what they're doing is they're saying, okay, well, you need to have health insurance, but we're not sure we're going to approve you. So what you need to do is get travel insurance first. And so you get that for your residence application, and then once you get approved, then you have to sign up for the state health insurance. And everyone's got to do it. I know that there are Croatians who don't do it, that maybe they're unemployed or maybe they work abroad or something and they've chosen not to do it. They are supposed to have it, whether they do it or not. But as foreigners, we're under more scrutiny. So we have to make sure that we follow those rules. So that is something that you must do once you get approved for a residence permit. And if you're a non-EU national, you have to not only pay the monthly premium, which is about 550 kunas per month, you also have to do a year of back pay. And that applies to every non-EU national, including children. So now we're going to talk about the big thing that has been in the news that everyone's talking about, and that's the digital nomad visa. So this has been in the news recently. There have been a lot of proposed changes to the law on foreigners, and one of those is the implementation of a digital nomad visa. I'm sorry to tell you, there's no information on this, not yet. It's still in the process. Nobody knows what's going on other than the people that are actually working on it. I don't even want to speculate on what it would look like. But if I were to speculate, I think it's probably going to be some kind of tax exemption, but also allowing you to work here. But whether you can work for a Croatian company, I don't know. We're just going to have to see. Now, there's no timeline. Again, there's no specifics. It's been very, very vague when it's been in the news. But in my time here, I have noticed that Croatia likes to drop big law changes on the first day of the year. So let's look towards 2021 and see if they announce that. When they do, just so you know, we keep a very close eye on the news. So whenever they do, I assure you that I will shout it from the mountaintops. I will post about it all over social media. I will do a post completely dedicated to the digital nomad visa. So if you haven't already, like this page, because that's where you're going to see it. You'll also see it in my newsletter and on my other social media channels on Twitter and Instagram. So that is how you can hear first about the digital nomad visa. So the next common question is about the permanent residency language test. So when you apply for permanent residency, which you can do after 5 consecutive years of temporary residency, one of the requirements is that you take and pass a Croatian language test. The question I get about this is, how can I get out of it? You cannot get out of it. That's just a requirement. You got to do it. The only way that you can get out of it is if you already have a Croatian language certificate that you can provide, and then that will get you out of it. I get that people are nervous about this thing. I totally get it. I was a wreck. I couldn't sleep for 2 weeks. I carried flashcards around me with me for a month and a half, like I was in the 7th grade or something. And then I got there and nothing I had studied was on the test, and it ended up being a lot easier. Now, I did totally bombed the verbal part, the oral part. But the written I aced, and it's a pass-fail It's really up to it's discretionary on the part of the proctor who's giving the test. They just want to see that you know some Croatian, that you're trying. Every person I've spoken to that was freaked out about this test, after the test, they're like, man, that was so much easier than I thought it was going to be. So, no, you can't get out of it, but it's not that big a deal. So don't worry about that. Hey guys, how are you enjoying the video so far? Please let me know in the comments. Give it a like if you're like, yeah, this is awesome. If you don't like it, you can give me an angry face. I'm not going to be mad at you. That's all right. All right, so I've got a few more of these common questions, and then I'm going to dig into your comments. So I'm getting there soon. So if you have a question, drop it in the comments so I can answer it soon. Okay, next is residence permits based on volunteering. Is there a minimum number of hours? No, there isn't. I actually spoke to MUP just 2 weeks ago just to reconfirm this, and they do not have a minimum hour requirement for volunteer contracts. There are very specific things you need to have in your volunteer contract, which we have listed on the website. So if you go to expatinCroatia.com and you search volunteer, then you will find my post on how to apply for a volunteer residence permit, and it will include those inclusions. That being said, while it says, you know, these are the things that need to be addressed in your contract, this is one of the situations where I would recommend a lawyer, because if the Udruga has not done a lot of contracts for foreigners in terms of residence, they won't necessarily know what has to be in that contract to meet the requirements that the police are asking for. So something to keep in mind. Next is heritage residence. That one doesn't roll off the tongue quite so nicely. So another question I've been getting a lot lately is, can you get residence in Croatia because you have Croatian heritage? No, you cannot. That is not a thing. That being said, it might be a thing. As part of these more sweeping changes to the law on foreigners that I mentioned earlier, that, you know, kind of makes up the digital nomad visa, one of the other changes that's being proposed is the creation of a residence permit for people with Croatian heritage. They have not released details about this. It will require some kind of proof, obviously, but nothing concrete has been released, and again, there's no time frame. But still, let's look to January 1, 2021 and see if something like that happens. That being said, if you have Croatian heritage, you should be applying for citizenship and do it as soon as possible, because the line is long. A lot of people are applying for citizenship now since they did away with the language requirement. And so right now, the minimum processing time that the government is estimating is 2 years. So you want to get in on that as soon as you can. I have tons of resources on heritage citizenship. Just go to my website, expatinCroatia.com, and in the search bar, go to citizenship. You'll also find it under immigration, and you'll see all of my resources there. So check that out. Next, my last one. This is my last common question that I get from people, and then we're going to dig into your question, so drop one in the comments. Do I have to pay taxes in Croatia? Yes, yes you do. Croatia requires that you pay taxes on your worldwide income. The exception is if your country has a double taxation treaty in place with Croatia. So that would be the exception. But yes, no matter which permit you're on, Croatia does require that you report and pay taxes on your worldwide income. All right, guys, so if you haven't already, if you want to enter to get the one-on-one consulting session with me, make sure you like this video, comment and tag a friend, or share it. Or is it that way? I don't know. All right, so I'm going to start going through user questions now. There are a few people who actually already submitted their questions before I went live, so I'm going to go through those first, and then I'm going to go through your live questions. So here we go. The first one is from Lynette Ariel Vasquez. Hello, Lynette. Thank you for submitting a question. Good to hear from you. So Lynette wants to know, what are the options for residency without the need for marriage? There are several of them. So one is work. There's two types of work for a Croatian company, or working for your own Croatian company that you have opened. Next is volunteer residence, which we've talked about as well. Next is student residence. So if you prove that you have enrolled or been accepted into a Croatia institution of higher learning, university, or also there are language programs, language schools that qualify for this as well, then you can apply for residence as a student. Next is based on property. So I'm actually working on a detailed post about applying for residence based on property. So that should be up later this week or next week, so keep an eye out for that. So what that means is if you buy a residential property, it has to have a house on it, it has to be zoned residential, then you can apply for residence based on that. It does have limitations. It will not give you a path to permanent residency. It's actually the permit that allows you to spend the least amount of time in Croatia. If you want to have more details on that, like the Facebook page if you haven't already, and you will get a notification from me once I actually have that post up. So that's coming soon. So next is scientific research. I haven't actually heard of anyone applying for this one, but it does exist. So if you want to do, if you got a grant to study a lizard on Barach, then you could potentially get residence based on that. The last is other purposes. So other purposes, which actually what it says in the law, covers a myriad of things. So technically, property is under other purposes. So essentially what this is it's kind of like a catch-all. Like if you don't fall into any of the other buckets, then other purposes is the right choice for you. So for example, right now, it's the best choice for digital nomads and foreign retirees. So I'm going to go through some of the catches and what makes this program a bit unique so that you understand, because it is right now the most popular option. So I'm going to spend a little bit of extra time on this one. So you need to have a 12-month lease contract. Now you can do a 6-month if you want to be here a shorter time, but most people want to be here the full year. So you need to have a 12-month lease contract. Now, for a while, they were requiring people to prepay their rent for that entire year. As of late, they have been waiving that prepayment due to the pandemic because so many people have been stuck in Croatia. Ultimately, it is up to the police station you talk to. Everyone's situation is different. Every person that you encounter at the police station is in a different kind of mood. So you just never know. You should be prepared for it, and then just be pleasantly surprised if they don't require it. So that is what kind of makes that one special. You do also have to show that you have a money on bank account, just like all the other permits. So it's the potential prepayment that makes that one different than all at once. So Lynette, I hope I answered your question. Anyone who wants to see all of the visas and residence permit options, go to my website, go to search, Expat in Croatia, go to search and type in visas, and you will find a post that has a list of all of them. It also includes a link to a guide with the process and application requirements for each individual program, with the exception of property because that's coming up soon. All right, so next is a question from Almir. He wants to know, has double taxation between Croatia and the US been resolved, or will it be? This is a great question. Personally applies to me. So, back in, I think, June, the US ambassador in Zagreb, he held a town hall where he talked about this. And because of the pandemic, it got pushed for 3 to 4 years. That being said, last week, the ambassador was in the news because he was working out some details about this with the Croatian government. The Croatian government says they're on board, which is great, but ultimately it doesn't matter what the Croatian government says unless American government gets on board. So until I see the Secretary of State in the US like confirming that, yeah, this is a thing, this is what we want to do, then it's not going to happen. I mean, It is brutal being an American and having to pay taxes in two countries or pay tax in a country that, I don't live in. If there are any Americans out there that feel my pain on this, please let me know, because it stinks. It's like after you pay taxes in both countries, you pretty much only have money left for like a coffee. That's it. Thank you, Amir, for that question. I appreciate it. Next is Michael Rebic. So Michael, he is a Croatian. He has a non-EU spouse. He wants to know, when can his spouse apply for temporary residence, before or after arrival? And also, when can they apply for permanent residence, and how long can they be gone from Croatia? All right, so I'm going to go one by one. So first, they cannot apply for residence until they get to Croatia. They have to be here. They have to be registered at an address where they live with you. So second, when can they apply for permanent residence? Currently, as the law stands, a spouse of a Croatian can apply for permanent residence 1 day after they hit their 5-year mark. And the 5 years is calculated from the date of their very first permit. And they must have 5 years of continuous temporary residence. Day after the 5-year mark, they can apply for permanent residence. Lastly, he asked, how long can they be gone from Croatia? So this has changed. So it was 30 days, now it's 6 months. So spouses of Croatians can be gone from Croatia up to 6 months per year. If they need to be gone longer because of some kind of emergency, you always need to speak to the police station first before you do it. In the cases of being gone from Croatia, no matter what kind of permit you're on, if you're going to be exceeding your limit, you need to talk to them before you do it. This is not a ask for forgiveness later kind of thing. You got to be upfront with them. So make sure that you do that. But I just want to make sure I'm clear about this. Spouses of Croatians can be gone up to 6 months. If you do not have a Croatian or European spouse, that does not apply to you. The 30 days applies to you. All right, guys. So now I'm going to dig into the questions that people have posted. Let's see what we got here. All right. So, all right. Wow, you guys have a lot of questions. That's awesome. All right. Dennis Patrick. He says, my family and I are in Croatia and are working towards citizenship through lineage. We're currently in Pula and we're going to take Hrvaticum starting in October. So can we apply for a student visa? Because of COVID, University of Zagreb is offering in-person and online. Do you think if we take the online, we'll be eligible for a student visa? That's an interesting question. So, Dennis, if you are taking a course with Hrvaticum, it does qualify for a student permit. The online version, I don't know about that one. That's a question for a MUP. I will find an answer for you, though. And I will let you know in the comments. Because to be honest, I haven't gotten that one before. All right, thank you so much. Okay, next is Metin Ayan wants to know, what is the difference between permanent residency and acquired citizenship? So citizenship is you actually have nationality. There are lots of benefits that come with citizenship. This is actually another post we're working on so that people can clearly understand what benefits they have with citizenship. With citizenship, you can vote, for example. There are lots of government subsidies that you don't have access to as a Croatian national. And you can have a passport. With permanent residency, it's just residence. You don't have to apply for residence again. You do have to renew your permit, but you can't be kicked out. You don't ever have to go through the application process again, but you can't vote. And there are quite a few things that you don't have access to. So I would say that that's the main difference. If you are if you're an EU national with permanent residence, then your card is valid for 10 years. If you are non-EU, then it's valid for 5. So I would say those are the biggest differences. Okay. Next is Sally. Can you travel while waiting for residency to come through? You shouldn't. You shouldn't do that. Because as part of the residence process, usually they send a cop to your house to make sure that that's where you live. They also have a tendency to send, the police have a tendency to send these blue envelopes with notices. They're like summons, essentially, that you have to sign for. They don't just drop them in your mailbox. Like the postman will come to your door and you have to sign for it. So they really prefer that you don't go anywhere because one, you won't be home for the house check, which is vital. And if you're not there for the house check, that could tank your entire application. If you get summoned because they need more information from you and you're not there, then again, that could tank your residence application. So I would not travel when you're waiting for your residency. Thank you so much for the question, Sally. That's a great one. Okay. Okay, Tom is asking for baptismal records for grandparents. Do you need original documents? This is actually citizenship related, but I'll go ahead and quickly answer. So yes, you need originals. They can't be copies. They've all got to be originals. Hi, Philip. Thanks for saying hi. Okay, Roxana, she wants to know how long does it take to get approved for permanent residency? This can vary. It all depends on your situation. So if you are a non-EU married to a Croatian spouse, it could take 6 months to a year. If you are an EU national, it's pretty instantaneous, like within like a couple of weeks. If you are none of those, like me, it took 18 months for me to get approved for permanent residency. And the reason was since I don't have a Croatian spouse or an EU spouse and was just here on my lonesome, they did periodic checks. Like every 4 months or so, they called me back into the station. They're like, okay, do you still live where you say you live? Do you still work where you say you work? Are you still making this amount of money? So I had to go through that all over again 3 different times during my permit application. So it took 18 months. So it really can just vary depending on your situation. All right. Thanks, Roxana. Appreciate your question. Okay. Phil. Hi, Phil. Okay, so Phil and Hazel from the UK, they've applied for residency and have been told to collect their residence cards in a month, which is up on Friday, apart from a letter from the health authority asking to send more copies of the health card. Should they expect some official letter saying it has been granted, or do we just rock up at MUP on Friday to collect our cards? Also, we think we made a mistake by only applying for 1 year when we could have applied for 5. What happens to people with temporary residency after UK leaves the EU? Can we just extend, or is it back to applying as if a third country? Okay, good questions. Okay, so first I'm going to address Brexit. So right now the transition period ends at the end of this year. So if you're a UK national, you really should apply for 5 years, because next year you will have to apply as a third country national, and that is much harder. So take advantage of the benefits that you have right now and go for 5 years. In your particular situation, Phil, I would say go back to the police and say, hey, I'm going to say, can I get 4 more years tacked onto this, and see what they say. Because you just never know. Because now's the time to ask. There's only less than 3 months left in the year. And if you can get those benefits now, then that is going to be the most important thing. I would just show up at MUP and just see what happens. See if they say that your cards or that your permit is ready. I mean, because ultimately they treat everything differently. Like some people, they'll give them a call. Some people, they'll send them a letter. If you're using a lawyer, they'll call your lawyer. Sometimes they won't do any of those things, and they just like drop the ball and forget about you, and you would never know that you got approved unless you went up there. So sometimes you gotta stay on top of MUP. I have a friend who was approved for permanent residency, and they just forgot to tell him. So he was approved for nearly a month and he had no idea. So I would just go there and see what they say. In worst case, they tell you that you gotta wait a little bit longer. But there is always a paper, a decision. It's just you never know if they're gonna mail that to you or not. Thank you so much, Phil and Hazel. Hello. Okay. Patty. Hi, Patty. Patty has Dopunsko health insurance, which is the supplemental health insurance, and she's in her first year of temporary residence. Do you recommend having dodatno? Okay, so in Croatia, there are 3 different kinds of health insurance. There is obavezno, which is the basic health insurance that everyone needs to get. I mentioned it earlier in the broadcast. The second kind is dopunsko. Dopunsko is a supplemental health insurance that usually costs around 60 to 70 kunas per month, which everyone should have dopunsko. It's not required, but you should have it. Dodatno is a private health insurance. So dodatno, I feel like, is really best if you have some mitigating health issues, or maybe there are health issues that you aren't experiencing yet, but you may. Like, for example, if breast cancer runs in your family, you don't have it yet, but there's a very big likelihood that you may. That's what dodatno is for, is if you have extreme health needs, or you really need to have some very specific diagnostic care, preventative care. That would be the reason I would get dodatno. Okay, thanks, Patty. Okay, yay. All right, so from Tina. Tina's asking, what about the new changes for residence permits for family reunion from third-party countries? Okay, so family reunion, we're talking about family reunification. So there aren't any changes that have been put in place just yet. So family reunification is essentially the ability to bring your spouse or your children with you to Croatia. And there are only very specific situations where you can do that. And those are with, if you have a work permit because you opened a company, then you can bring your spouse and your children. If you work for a Croatian company and you're a non-EU, then you cannot use family reunification for the first 2 years. And that goes for all of the other permits. For example, let's say that you want to go through the other purposes permit, the general non-work related one, and you're 2 partners and you have children. The only way you can bring your children is if both of you, both parents, are here with residents. So that's the only case of that. They really don't want, with all of their residence permits for the most part, other than work by opening a company, they don't want families coming. They want to make sure that you're going to be here long term, and in most of the residence permit options, you can't be here long term, so it kind of cancels each other out. I hope I answered your question, Tina. Thank you so much. Okay, Marilee McLean is asking, can a retired person use a volunteer contract to get a residence permit, or are there age limits? You know, it's funny you ask this because I got the same question on email today. There is an age limit. There's an age limit of 65. That being said, I don't see any reason why you shouldn't try anyways, because why would Croatia not want to have more volunteers? I don't really understand the age limit. And like I said earlier, Croatia is one big gray area. You never know. Worst is they say no. And if they say no, then you can always, your backup plan can be the other purposes residence permit. So don't worry, even if they say that you can't because you're over 65, there is a backup plan. Thank you so much, Marilee. Okay, John Pendle. For official translations presented at Croatian consulates in the U.S., must they be translated by U.S.-based official translator, or translations from English to Croatian performed in Croatia? Are they accepted? And what is the official translator certifying organization? Okay, so they need to be translated by a Croatia official translator, whether that be through the embassy or done through someone in Croatia, it needs to be in Croatian official translation. Whenever you have an official translation, they put this pretty little rope on it with a big gold seal, and that's what you need to have for those translations. So if you need to be connected with a translator here in Croatia, just send me an email. Go to expatinCroatia.com/contact, and you will find my contact information there, and I can connect you with somebody. Thank you so much for the question. Okay. All right. Gordana Webster. My husband is British and has problems with his residency and health insurance. He has a Croatian ID, had 1 year temporary resident permit, which after that initial year extended for another year because of Brexit. He has no health insurance and his EU health card is only valid until the end of December. 1 year temporary residence permit, which after that was well, then he's going to need to get health insurance here, because after the end of Brexit, EU health card won't exist anymore for British citizens. So he will need to get HZO here. There have been complexities with UK citizens trying to get health insurance here because HZO will ask for a document that doesn't exist. They will ask you to provide a document that you are not insured in your home country. But that goes for EU countries. So once we hit January 1, 2021, it won't matter anymore. So he should just sign up for HZO health insurance as soon as he can if he doesn't have health insurance already. Thank you so much, Gordana. If I didn't answer your question, please let me know. Okay. Angie Cole, does the U.S. have the double taxation treaty? No, we answered this a little bit ago. There is not a double taxation treaty in place with Croatia. It's very, very sad. It breaks my heart and my bank account. I'm hoping that there will be one. I mean, there's talk of one. It will exist at some point, but whether it exists next year or 4 years from now, there's no way for any of us to know. Thank you for your question. Okay, next we've got, if my husband has residency, do I need to have a job too? This question's a bit hard to answer without knowing your nationality or knowing your husband's nationality. So if your husband has residency, do I need to have a job too? No, you don't. Both spouses don't have to work. I would say if you're non-EU and your husband's non-EU, and he's got residency through some other means, then family reunification doesn't kick in. So I might need a little bit more information about your situation to answer that question. So if I didn't answer it, please reply to your comment on your first comment, and I will get an answer to you. Thank you so much, Sally. So the next one is from Paula Anna Vincent. So this is a citizenship question. If my mom has her domovnica, can I apply for citizenship? Yes, on the surface, but there are a lot more complexities to that question. The citizenship law is very specific. It all depends on where your parent was from, if they left Croatia, where they left to, when they left. So I would say send me an email and we can talk a little bit more about your situation. If you go to expatinCroatia.com and go under immigration to citizenship or just search citizenship, I do have a quick form. It only takes about 60 seconds. You just answer a few questions and it'll tell you if you qualify for citizenship there. Thank you so much for the question. Okay, let's see what we got next. Wow, a lot of questions. Okay, Patty, you mentioned about paying taxes, but if I'm not employed, do I have to report it? Where do I get more info about it? If you're not employed anywhere and you're not making income anywhere, then you don't need to pay taxes. It's only when you're making some kind of income that you would have to. It's irrelevant whether you're working or not. Like, okay, for example, if you have passive income from another country, you're still supposed to report that to Croatia. If you want to get a resource specifically on that, send me an email and I can get that to you. Okay. Next is Craig T. Perhaps slightly off topic, but are you aware of programs that encourage foreign nationals to create new businesses in Croatia? Yes, I am. As a matter of fact, there is a new program called Task for Come that I am actually working with down here in Split to help foreign nationals open up businesses. There's also a variety of grants that are available to non-EU nationals. If you go to my website, expatandcroatia.com, and search for grants, you'll find a list of those. We also have a post in the queue that we're working on for a variety of different groups that are specific for encouraging entrepreneurship, whether it be for foreign nationals or Croatians. So check that out. Thank you so much, Craig, for the question. Thanks, Andrea. I'm so glad to answer all of your questions. Okay. Paula, it's frozen for you. Well, I hope I'm not frozen anymore, because it might be pretty frightening what I look like if I'm frozen. Okay, Rachel, I'm from Vietnam, and I wish to migrate to Croatia. May I know any migrate programs by government? So there are a variety of visa programs that are available. We talked about that a little bit earlier in the broadcast. If you go to expatandcroatia.com and search visa, you're going to find an article that has a list of all of the residence permits that are available to non-EU nationals. In terms of residency, Croatia puts people into two buckets, essentially. There's EU nationals and there's non-EU nationals. So anyone who's not an EU citizen, they fall into the non-EU bucket. So there's a variety of options there for you. So I would go and take a look at that list, and it links out to different guides for each different kind of residence permit. Okay, next, Amber Little, yeah, Amber, I think I've talked to you actually. What has been the biggest hurdle you've encountered in establishing residency? What are average costs to establish this? Do you pay taxes in the US and Croatia if you are a dual citizen? Biggest hurdle? Well, probably language. That's been the biggest hurdle for sure. The first year I got here was before Croatia entered the EU. And the first time I went to go apply for residency, my real estate broker went with me, and then the second time, this consultant who helped me open up my company went with me, and then after that, I kind of was on my own because it was long before expat groups existed. I didn't know anybody. I worked from home. It was pretty hard to meet people at that time. So I just had to figure it out. And so what I did is every time I went to the police station, I would translate what I needed to accomplish in Google Translate, and I would print it real big on a piece of paper, and I would smash it up on the window and just hope that she had no follow-up questions. And that was really like anxiety producing. And I gotta say, like, nothing has really changed. I still get anxiety when I go to the police station because language is a really giant hurdle. And the farther that you get along in the residency process, the less patience they have for you not speaking Croatian. So I would say that's definitely my biggest hurdle. What are the average costs to establish residency? Well, it all depends on what kind of residency you're going for. But I would say that most of them that are not like opening a company related, really your biggest cost is going to be you have to put a big chunk of money in a bank account to show that you can support yourself for a year. Usually that's about 2,000 kunas per person per month, but I have an article on the website about it. Just go to expatandcroatia.com and hit search and type in financial means, and you'll get an estimate of what it is that you actually have to show you have. And then health insurance, because every non-EU national has to pay for an entire back year of premiums in addition to the ones going forward. So those are going to be the biggest costs. Do you pay taxes in the US and Croatia? It doesn't matter if you're a citizen or not. It's about residency. So if you're a resident in Croatia, you are supposed to pay taxes on your worldwide income. The United States does the exact same thing. So if you are a US citizen and you live in Croatia like me, you have to pay taxes in both places. It stinks. Okay, hi Maria. Okay, now going to Mona Jones. Is it true that a UK citizen, we have to reapply for temporary residency every year and that it could potentially be rejected? I don't know about it being rejected. Um, I mean, there's no reason why UK residence application would be rejected any more than anyone else's. But usually, something I actually like about Croatian bureaucracy is that they won't even accept your application for residence unless you've met all the requirements, in which case it's unlikely that you would be denied. Um, yeah, if you apply for residence and you only get a 1 year permit this year as a UK citizen, the next year you're going to have to apply as a third country national, and that's going to be infinitely harder because you can't apply for residency with the same privileges that you have been up to this point. So things are going to change next year. Next, Eric Reed. Is there a good resource for American expats that own businesses and sponsor American visas? Wait, sponsor American visas like residence permits for Americans who want to live in Croatia? I'm going to assume that's what you're saying. If it's not, then clarify and I will answer it after this broadcast. There is not. I would say that my recommendation would be to join the expat groups. There's tons of expat Facebook groups all over Croatia if you haven't already. If you need a full list, go to expatcroatia.com and hit search and then type in Facebook groups and you will find a post that has a list of all of them. That is usually where you can find stuff like that. While it's not like organized in the sense that there's like a proper list, that is where foreigners and Croatians alike will post job posts. And if they're looking for foreign nationals in particular, they're going to post it there. That is really the meeting place, the community where you can find things like that. So I would check that. Thank you so much. Okay. Hi, Precious. Good to hear from you again. So she's already in Croatia, but her marriage is not yet legalized, all delayed because of Corona. We got married in Zambia, but we were just thinking of getting married twice here and use a Croatian marriage certificate for my temporary residence permit renewal, which I should start in January. Yeah, that makes sense. I would go ahead and do that for sure, because you just don't want to risk a chance of being kicked out of Croatia and being told that you have to be gone for 90 days. So I would definitely take care of that. Okay. Who do we have next? Sally, my husband has residency, so I think I can travel up to 6 months if I understand you correctly. So this is back to a previous question asking how long can you be gone per year? Sally, if your husband is a UK citizen, which I believe he is because you asked a previous question, this year you can travel up to 6 months, but next year you cannot because he will no longer be considered an EU citizen. Okay, Felicia for our Scott. Thank you for your question. Which digital nomads are rules with digital nomads are rules changing or do you not see that happening? Well, the rules are supposed to change. They're talking about them changing. So for that reason, I think that it's possible. But ultimately, like Croatia will tease you and then not do anything. So I want to be optimistic that this is something that they're actually going to do, but ultimately we will not know until they publish the law change, it goes out on the Radne Novine. Until that happens, nothing is going to be official. I will say, I do know the people who are working on this with the government, and I am confident in their abilities to do everything within their power to make this happen. So I'm hoping it will, but the timeline is very uncertain. So if you're planning to come to Croatia, or maybe you're already here on a tourist visa and you want to apply for a permit, do not wait for the digital nomad visa. Just go ahead and do some other method, most likely the other purposes, and get set up now. And then later, if it's implemented, you can then change. You can always apply for the digital nomad visa on your second go around. Okay. Kathy, This is a citizenship question. Both parents left Croatia and Bosnia. Do both lineages work for my citizenship or only my dad? It all depends on, well, you only need one. You only need one. So I would say go with your dad. As long as your dad left Croatia before 1991, then yes, you do qualify for citizenship. Thanks so much, Kathy. Okay, Claudia. I have temporary residence, but I'm getting divorced, so I will be applying for a working visa. After that time from working passed, can I apply for permanent residence or must I apply again for temporary residence? Well, if you have 5 years of continuous temporary residence, regardless of what the basis is, then you can apply for permanent residence. So I don't see why not. If you need resources on that, go to expatcroatia.com, search permanent, and you will find an article that explains all of the different requirements for that and how to apply. Okay, someone is trying to give me cash. I don't know. All right, next is Peda. Hello, my wife is second year here now. She's from Philippines. However, we couldn't afford to, or we couldn't pay for health insurance. Would Croatia government refuse her third year of residence and separate marriage if we can't pay those now? 15,000 kunas for 3 years. I will answer this from personal experience. You have to have health insurance that is current. I will say that Croatia's departments, HZZO, and the police are not connected. So there is a chance that maybe they wouldn't find out. But here's the thing. I did this. For the first 2 or 3 years, I didn't pay for health insurance. Doesn't matter why. But to me, I was like, why would I do that when I don't need to go to the doctor very much? And going to a private doctor every few months is way cheaper than paying for the monthly premium. I did not know what the ramifications of that bad decision were. I soon found out. So if you stack up a debt like that, they're going to take money from you out of your bank account. It'll just be gone one day. And that's what happened to me. And I spent all day going around to 5 different government offices to try and sort it out. And by the end of it, they're like, that money's gone. You need to pay down this thing. Thing is your health, and if you get into that situation, your health insurance will not be reactivated until you pay that entire amount. So my recommendation, if you're really trying to be here for the long haul, is you need to start paying that down soon, because they will take your money and it could put you at risk for not being able to, put your wife at risk for not being able to get a new work permit. And also you won't have current health insurance. So I would get a handle on that for sure. Okay, let's see what else we got here. Lots of people being blessed with $5,000. All right. All right, Gordana has another question. My husband's British and he's been living in Croatia for over a year. He got granted temporary, which was recently extended for another year. We tried applying for permanent, but got rejected since I still live in the UK. Yeah, okay. Yeah, you have to live here with him. Whenever anyone has residence based on their spouse, they have to live with each other in Croatia at the same address. So yeah, that would definitely cause a problem. So you'll need to come back for him to be able to do that. Okay, Elsa, you mentioned this police visit when you apply for a permit. How is that realistic? I'm usually out at the beach or exploring the city, or not much staying at home. So how would I know if someone stopped by? It's a valid question. Absolutely valid. Well, if they come by and you're not there, then the next step is they're gonna send a summons. And then you're gonna have to go into the office. And usually when they send the summons, you have to come within 8 days is the max, but usually it can be like 3 or 4 days. Sometimes they'll even call you and say you need to come in. So that's what can happen if you don't do that. Okay, Paula, if I have an Iskanita for 5 years, will I be automatically eligible for citizenship after 5 years? I assume you're referring to an Osobna Iskanita. Osobna Iskanitas are ID cards that are only for citizens. So you don't have an Osobna Iskanita if you are not a citizen. It depends, in terms of qualifying for citizenship, it depends on what your nationality is. So if you're an EU citizen, then you have to wait 8 years and have permanent residency. If you're a non-EU citizen, you have to wait 8 years and have permanent residency. If you are a spouse of a Croatian, you have to wait 5 years and have permanent residency. If I didn't answer your question, please let me know. Kara Krizea, is there a double taxation treaty with Canada? I've actually got the list up, and yes, there is. Lucky you. Thank you so much, Kara. Okay, Suzanne, I'm a UK citizen. You know, Facebook, always mixing things up, making things jump around the page. Okay, here it is. I'm a UK citizen. Fiance is EU. If my work is international contracts and not Croatia based, is that okay? Yeah, it's absolutely okay. If you're not getting a work and residence permit, then wherever you work is irrelevant. Just remember that you do have to pay taxes here if your country doesn't have a double taxation treaty in place. Okay, next is Priscilla. I'm Brazilian and I was married with a Croatian guy for 3 years. I'm divorced now and I get a work visa. And oh, I've already answered your question. Oh, no, I haven't. Will you have the right to permanent stay, or is it 8 years for permanent stay and 1 more year for citizenship? I was in this exact situation, so I can speak from experience. Same. After 5 years, so after the 3 years, I was married to an EU person and I got divorced, and Croatia let me stay. Thank you, Croatia. So I had to apply for a new residence permit. They allowed me to stay the 5 years, and then I had to apply for permanent residency as a non-EU, so on my own merit without those EU spouse benefits. And then after 8 years, I can apply and naturalize. But you have to remember that if you naturalize like that, you do have to give up your other citizenship. That is the only case where Croatia makes you give up your other citizenship, is if you're naturalizing as an individual. You're not doing it through marriage or heritage. Okay, more offers for $5,000. Denise, how can we support your good work? That is so kind. Well, you can follow me on social media. I'm at Expat in Croatia on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You can follow my newsletter, which you can subscribe to by going to expatincroatia.com and clicking on subscribe. You can donate to this project if you want to help support it, but you can do that by going to expatincroatia.com/donate-now. So you can do that as well. And the other ways is you can just say hi and say, hey man, I really appreciate this stuff, because you guys appreciating this is like why I do it, and it gives me a lot of joy to help people come and live in Croatia. So I really appreciate all of you guys being here today. Kif Gallimore, are Social Security benefits taxed in Croatia? Yes, they are. They are. Any income, any worldwide income is taxed in Croatia. The other thing that you should know about Social Security is if you're collecting a foreign pension, then you are supposed to go to HZZO, the State Health Insurance Fund, and notify them, because then they change the amount of health insurance premiums that you pay, and it ends up being 16.5% of your foreign pension. It's kind of a big chunk. I hope they change that at some point, but that's what it is. Thanks so much for the question. Okay. Eric Reed, is there a good resource for companies looking to hire non-residents and sponsor their work visas? Actually, we're working on a post right now about that. We're scoping a variety of companies, like bigger kind of multinational companies that have facilities in Croatia that hire non-EUs for work visas. So stay tuned for that. Make sure you like the page so that you can get updated when we publish that post. Thanks so much, Eric. Okay. Lee Wright, we are New Zealand citizens traveling home from Saudi and want to go via Croatia for a 2-week break. Can you share some of the current COVID rules, please? Whew. Okay, well, if you are a non-EU citizen coming into Croatia, then you need to have a negative PCR test that is no older than 48 hours. You have to present that at the border. If you do not have it, or you have one that's expired, then you have to quarantine for 14 days. Or alternatively, you can quarantine for 7 days, and then you have to get retested in Croatia at your own expense. So that's what you need to know about that. Okay, Hassan, I'm living in 8 months in Croatia. When can I apply for permanent residence? 5 years and 1 day from the date of your first temporary residence permit. That's when you can apply for permanent residency. Okay, let's see what else we got here. All right, Peter Stanish Evans. We own an apartment and split since 2014. My wife is Austrian, I'm British. We want to stay at least 5 months a year in Croatia. What is our best route to moving the 90 days to 150 days? Temp residence rather than all year, but every year. Well, in this case, your best option is property. If you purchase a residential property here that you live in, you can live in Croatia for up to 9 months per year. 6 months as a temporary resident and 90 days as a tourist. So if your goal is only to be here 150 days a year, that is going to be your best option. If you don't want to do that, the reason I say that that's the best option, aside from the fact that you want to be here a short amount of time, is also because you can keep doing it every year. You know, with these other shorter term stays, they're limited to how many times you can apply for that permit. So I would look at that. We are working on a post about that, so that should be up this week or next week. So stay tuned for that. Annie, hey Annie, good to hear from you. Why does MUP not like tourists? I haven't been able to arrange a permit due to COVID here, and I can't even travel. That is sad. I feel for you. It's not that MUP doesn't like tourists. It's that MUP doesn't like anybody. That's all there is to that. So don't take it personal. That's just how it is. I'm sorry that you haven't been able to arrange a permit. Let's talk about that a little bit more. Send me an email and let me know exactly what you mean, but they haven't been able to arrange one. Is it because you've been denied for a permit, or it's just taking forever to approve? So let me know, and we'll see what we can work out on that front. But it is not personal, seriously. And if you go at the wrong time of day, you're also going to encounter people who have not had their smoking coffee break, and that's just dangerous. Hi, Logan. Thanks for coming. Okay. All right, Michael, I'm a bit confused in a message you sent. You say that only companies with worldwide income need to pay Croatian taxes. As I'm retired, my major income is from stocks and bonds. Would that be taxable? Would my American Social Security be taxed? Yes. It's not about companies that need to pay tax on worldwide income. It's the individual. So as an American, well, it doesn't matter. It's all based on residency. It doesn't matter what your nationality is. But you would need to pay tax on any income that you receive. So that includes passive income from stocks and bonds, and also Social Security. That's just how the tax system in Croatia works. So I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news. I feel your pain. Okay. Aw, thanks so much, Logan. I appreciate that. I'm trying to be the most wonderful woman that I can possibly be. Okay, you're welcome, guys. Oh, we're getting to the end here. Okay, Amar, I'm a Croatian citizen. My wife is Russian. We will be starting the residency process at the beginning of the year. Once she gets her permanent residency in 5 years or even before, is her Russian mom able to move to Russia based on my citizenship, or will she have to wait until my wife is a Croatian citizen. Neither. She cannot do that in either situation. Family reunification only applies to spouses and children. The only way that she would be able to come here based on family reunification is if there is documented proof that she is your dependent. That would be the only scenario. It's irrelevant to citizenship. So that's something to keep in mind. Thanks so much for the question, though. That's a good one. Kara, I'm a U.S. citizen. My husband is Canadian. We would like to retire in Croatia. How is the best way to do it? The best way is the other purposes permit. It's not work-related. You can do it for a year. Sometimes they let you do it for a second year, but after that, you've got to leave for 18 months. So that is one option. If you go to my website, expatinCroatia.com, and you type non-EU into the search bar, or just go to immigration, you're going to find our post about that permit. The other option, if you're able to, is to buy a property, buy a residential property, and then you can be in Croatia for up to 9 months per year indefinitely. There's no limit to that. So those would be the two options that I would recommend for you. Thanks so much, Kara. Kif, what is the current tax rate? There are two tax rates, 24% and 36%. So it depends on how much income you make per month. So if you go to my website, expatinCroatia.com, and you type in taxes into the search bar, you're going to find a post that lists all of the current taxes, and it'll include those thresholds. Thanks so much, Kit, for the question. Okay, Patty. Question again based on Priscilla's question. I understand the laws may change over time in Croatia, but let's say I'm from a third country, married to a Croatian on first-year temporary residence. Eventually, if I get the permanent residence and decide to go further on, will I have to renounce my citizenship to get the Croatian? My country allows dual citizenship. Okay. If you're married to a Croatian and you eventually get to the point where you qualify for citizenship, then you don't have to give up your Mexican nationality. Spouses don't have to do that. I will say this, something important to note is that once you get permanent residence, you can immediately apply for citizenship. So you don't have to wait 8 years like the rest of us fools. You can do it right after you get approved for permanent. Okay. Lillian, is there a double tax deal between Australia and Croatia? I will tell you right now. No, there isn't. There is not. So you're in the same boat as me and the rest of the Americans, and you will have to pay taxes in both places. All right, let's see what Mark said. Any UK citizen who registers before the end of the transition period will be treated like an EU national so long as they don't leave. Form 2021, UK nationals can be outside Croatia for close to 6 months, must be in Croatia for more than 138 days a year. Please see info about withdrawal. Yeah, that's all correct. That's absolutely all correct. Yes, that is true. However, after that, there are some British nationals this year who've only been granted a 1-year permit, in which case next year when they apply for a new one, they're not going to have those same EU privileges. So they're not going to be able to be gone for up to 6 months per year. So it's all about the terms according to the residence permit that you have. And yes, Brexit does make things complicated. Thank you so much for including that resource, Mark. Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, Elsa. Regarding U.S. Croatian taxes, popular topic. If you don't report the earned income in the U.S., I assume you wouldn't have to report it here. Assuming the 1-year visa permit. Also, U.S. doesn't double tax you unless you earn over 85K, in which case, if you make less, you would pay less money on taxes. Okay, I will clarify this statement. The U.S. you are exempt from paying income tax on your foreign income when you live abroad for the United States up to a certain threshold if you are employed by a company. If you own the company or you're self-employed, that threshold, that exemption does not matter. It does not apply to you. So for example, I own my own company. So because of that, I'm considered self-employed, so my income goes to Schedule C instead of where W-2 income would go. So it doesn't apply to everybody, unfortunately. I don't know why entrepreneurs get the short end, but that's America, man. Thank you, Elsa. That is a really good question. I'm glad that you prompted me to clarify that. All right. John Robin, as an EU citizen planning to buy property and set up a Croatian company, are all these reasons useful, or is just one enough? One's enough. If you're an EU citizen, that's all you need, man. You just go there and apply and you're good. If you want to know the process, go to my website, go to immigration. You'll find a post about how EU citizens and their spouses can apply for residency. It includes the entire process, a link to download the form, as well as all the requirements. Thanks so much, John. Philip, can you clarify what you said about home ownership in Croatia and the right to stay for 9 months in any 1 year? Sure. So, in the law on foreigners, there's an article about other purposes. So I've mentioned other purposes before. This is the typical standard 1 year for non-EUs. But the property, being able to apply based on property is part of that. While it's not actually in the law, in practice, that you're allowed to do that. So if you buy a residential property, it has to be zoned residential. It cannot be agricultural. If you buy a residential property, you live in that property, then you can apply for temporary residence for 6 months. Then you have to leave for 90 days. Then you can return for 90 days as a tourist. And then once there has been a solid 6 months in between your previous permit and the time after, then you can apply for that again, and you can do that in perpetuity. Okay, Gordana, thank you for your support advice. I'm happy to help. Our problems with the health insurance are more complicated. The Croatian authorities keep asking for the UK forms which don't exist, and it's been a nightmare for over 2 years. MUP and HZZO don't want to budge, so it's a catch-22. I feel you on that. I have talked to so many people in your situation who have that problem. If you go to expatcroatia.com, there is, go under immigration, there's a section called residence by nationality. I have a post specifically for British citizens, and I have a section about that where I've wrote based on conversations I had with people just like you in this situation and the things they were able to do to resolve it. It's not easy, for sure. And in one situation, they just took a lawyer down there, and the lawyer was like, look, you are asking for something that you don't need and does not exist. Can you please just give them health insurance? So it might be a matter of strong-arming them, but there are also some alternative things that you can do. People have had to get really creative. So go to my website, find the British guide, and you will find some suggestions on how you can resolve that situation. Susanna, can I become a Croatian citizen if my mom is Croatian? Possibly. It depends on a variety of factors. If you go to expatcroatia.com, go under immigration and click on citizenship, you're going to find a post in there. It's just a quick form. It only takes about 60 seconds to fill out, and you just check some things, and it'll tell you instantly if you qualify for Croatian citizenship. Thanks. Okay. Thank you, Amberelle, for sharing that. Appreciate that. Such a nightmare for UK nationals. Yeah, health insurance really is. Okay. Anmar, thank you for the answer. My Russian wife and I are about to have our first child. Will they be able to have the dual citizenship, or my wife and I have to choose between Croatian and Russian citizenship? Well, if one of you becomes a Croatian, then only then can your child have Croatian citizenship. There's no birthright citizenship. The only way that a child can qualify for it is if they have a Croatian parent. So you'd have to wait for that. And if you're asking if you have to choose between Croatian and Russian citizenship, yeah, based on the other comments that you've made, it sounds like in your situation, you're here based on work. If you're here based on work, then you would have to naturalize, which is my same situation. So you would have to give up your Russian citizenship. Okay. All right, guys, we've gone pretty long, and the sun is starting to change position. So I'm going to answer one more question, and then the rest of them I'm going to answer later. So since we're wrapping this up, I'm going to say if you want to have your last chance to enter to win a one-on-one consulting session with me, make sure that you drop a comment and tag a friend in it. Like this video and share it out to get all 3 options for the entries. And then keep a lookout on your Facebook Messenger in case I contact you to say, hey, you won, let's talk. Okay, all right, guys. So one last question. Let's see what we got. Dennis, this is a good question. Okay, for property, how much land is considered agricultural, or is that already zoned? It's all done by zones. So I'm trying to adjust the light, guys, so you can see me. I look like a ghost. It's all about how it's zoned. So there is actually a post on my website about how to find how property is zoned. So just go to expatcroatia.com, go in the search bar and select property or type in property, and you're gonna find a couple of posts there, and one of them goes details exactly how you can find how something is zoned. So I'm wrapping up now. I'm going to answer all of your questions, I promise. Thank you so much for being here. I'm really, really honored that you took the time out of your day to spend with me here and ask me all these questions. It really, really warms my heart. I'm so glad that you all are fans. Like, you're the reason that I'm doing this. And so it gives me so much joy. I love Croatia, and I'm happy to help anyone who also wants to come to Croatia and love it as much as I do. So thank you all for saying hi. Thank you for asking questions. Thank you for being here. Remember to like this, comment, let me know what you thought about it. I'd like to do more in the future, so if you have any ideas of what you want to talk about in the future, let me know. I am planning on doing one on citizenship next month, so I will be doing that. If you want to follow me other places, you can go to Instagram and Twitter, both at Expat in Croatia. You can follow the newsletter. If you want to subscribe to the newsletter, go to expatinCroatia.com and click subscribe. It's a big blue button. Can't miss it. And then you're going to get my newsletter once a week, which includes a wrap-up of posts from the previous week, and also our weekly Croatian lesson, which is a word and phrase of the week. And it also includes some curated news from Croatian news that is all actionable stuff that actually will impact your life. So I don't post that stuff anywhere else. You also have access to all my freebies. I create freebies for all of my newsletter subscribers. And the current one is the 9 biggest mistakes that you can make when moving to Croatia. So if you go and subscribe to the newsletter, you're going to have instant access to that freebie, as well as all the ones I've already created and published in the past. So lastly, in a few minutes, I'm going to figure out who is the lucky winner of the one-on-one consulting session. So keep an eye on your Facebook Messenger. And if you don't win, you're like, oh man, I didn't hear from her today. I guess I didn't win. It's all right. You can still connect with me. Don't worry about it. I got to get out of this shade. There we go. Now I can see you again. So if you still want to talk to me one-on-one, that's absolutely possible. Just go to expatinCroatia.com/Sara. And you can request a consulting session with me, and I can help you with all your problems. Sort it all out. Real easy like. All right, guys, that's it for me. Thank you so much again for coming. I really, really appreciate it. And yeah, I'm going to talk to you guys real soon. So thanks.